Hello, my dear viewers. This amazing story will be very instructive for you. It is very interesting and beautiful. I wish you enjoy watching it.
Amanda was walking back from the market, carrying 2 heavy bags of vegetables. She was completely immersed in her sad thoughts when suddenly she heard someone calling her name. Candy. It had been a long time since she had been called that, and the woman didn't even realize it was her. But she looked around and saw a beautiful, bright brunette looking at her and smiling. Looking closer, Amanda recognized her classmate Ashley. "Hi, Candy," Ashley said hello to Amanda as she came closer. "Hi, Ashley," the tired woman replied with a sigh as she set the bags down on the pavement. "Haven't seen you in ages. How are you?" Ashley asked cheerfully. "Why do you have to carry all that weight yourself? Where's your husband?" "I'm fine. I don't have a husband," Amanda replied, feeling very embarrassed about her appearance in front of her spectacular classmate. Her makeup was flawless, her manicure exquisite, her hair well-groomed. Ashley was glowing with beauty and health, and she, Amanda, with her ponytail, unkempt nails, unhealthy complexion due to constant sleep deprivation and anxiety. It was amazing that Ashley recognized her at all. After all, Amanda had once been very different. Amanda was her parents' only child, and a long-awaited one. When she was born, her mom was 39 and her dad was well into his 40s. Cody and Caroline had given up hope that they might have children, resigned themselves to their fate, and lived for each other. And suddenly, such joy. At a doctor's appointment, Caroline learned she was expecting a baby, and she thought that she started early menopause and dragged to the gynecologist to confirm her assumptions. At home, the woman returned in tears, and Cody at first frightened, thinking that his wife was given some terrible diagnosis. But it turned out that Caroline was crying from happiness, learning that he will soon become a father. Cody also could not hold back a tear. Always restrained and stingy on emotions, a former military man, he cried, so much touched his news about the future baby. His Caroline he took care of and literally carried in his arms until the birth, blowing dust off her. Caroline even laughed at her husband, watching him, a big and strong man, clumsily mopping the floor, ineptly peeling potatoes. The skin of the potato slid off the potato as thin and long shavings, but Cody cut off the skin so that less than half of a large potato was left. He had never done anything in the household before. Everything was on her, but now he had learned everything. And soups, which he initially managed to noticeably oversalted, eventually learned to cook so that Caroline thought tastier. She had never eaten anything in her life. The woman's pregnancy was quite difficult. More than once, there was a threat of miscarriage, and the future parents were very afraid that they would lose the child. But thanks to the efforts of doctors who did everything possible to preserve the pregnancy, Caroline gave birth to a healthy baby girl on time, which was decided to be called Amanda. Caroline, who works in a library, loved the book Evenings at a Farm near Decanka, and especially The Night Before Christmas. So she named her daughter the same name as the heroine of the story, the willful, proud, and beautiful Amanda. With the birth of Amanda, the couple's life was filled with new meaning. They could not put their soul in their little girl. They tried to have the best for their daughter and hoped that fate would allow them to have time to put the girl on her feet, give her an education, and also very much wanted to wait for grandchildren. It was the biggest dream of the parents, to see how their Amanka will become a wife and mother. They are not young. The years are rushing by, adding more and more new diseases. Where can you go from them? Amanda grew up a kind and obedient girl, studied well. Despite the fact that her mother and father adored her, they managed to raise her not spoiled, to instill a love of labor and reading, respect for elders. Outwardly, Amanda was more like her father. Tall, blue-eyed with correct facial features, and from her mother she inherited blonde hair and a charming smile. Young people looked at the pretty girl. Many liked her, but Amanda was in no hurry to open her heart to someone. She wanted to first get an education, a profession, and then already think about creating a family. Graduating from school with a medal and successfully passed the final exams, Amanda entered one of the most prestigious universities in the city on the budget. How happy were Cody and Caroline for her. They were so proud of their blood, who grew up so smart and beautiful. Time passed. Amanda brilliantly graduated from college, got a job, and it would seem live and enjoy. But not so. More and more often her parents began to get sick, especially her father. He was wounded during a business trip to a hotspot, and because of which he had to leave the military service. In age, you can't escape it. Caroline was very worried about her husband, and because of that she often moped and cried furtively while Cody was out of sight, so as not to upset him with her tears. Amanda met Thomas at that time. They worked together, and the girl had long noticed that he was not indifferent to her. She also liked the young man, and that's why, when he once invited her on a date, she didn't refuse. They had a good time, had dinner in a restaurant, took a walk in the evening, fragrant with spring scents in the city. And from that evening they began their romance. Amanda was happy. It seemed to her that she finally met the man with whom she would be able to create a family and experience the happiness of motherhood. Only her parents were more and more worried about her. She was worried about them very much. And once, when Thomas asked her why she did not invite him to her, Amanda said that her father is very sick, and her mother is constantly nervous because of this. The girl was not going to hide anything from her beloved. What's the point? If people love each other and want to be together, they should not hide anything from each other. Lies have no place in a relationship, her mother often told Amanda, and the girl remembered her words well and didn't like lying. Why don't you put your father in a nursing home? Thomas asked, after listening to Amanda. Where to? She said, not immediately able to say. For a moment she was speechless with surprise. Thomas said it so easily, as if it were not about her dear and endlessly loved father, but about some old and unnecessary thing that had to be taken to the dump. To the nursing home, as if nothing had happened, repeated the young man. Do you want to give me the phone number and address? A month ago my parents put my grandmother there. She has dementia, bored everyone with her quirks. By the way, my grandmother's apartment is now mine. I'm going to make repairs there, now just looking for masters. My grandmother's apartment is so filthy that it's scary to even go in there. But after the renovation, we'll be able to live there. So you and I will have our own nest. With these words, Thomas drew Amanda to him and wanted to kiss her, but she pulled away from him. His touch and kisses instantly disgusted her. What are you doing? Thomas exclaimed in surprise. Your parents took your grandmother to a nursing home. Amanda almost screamed. But how could they do that? It's a family member. It's Mom, who gave birth to her, raised her, who loved and cared for her. And now she's old and needs care. How can you get rid of her like an old worn-out shoe? Are you stupid? Thomas looked at Amanda like she was crazy. My grandmother is almost out of her mind. She hardly recognizes my mother, her daughter. And in the nursing home, she'll be taken care of by people who work there and get paid for it. And I need an apartment. How long can I live with my parents? I didn't think you were so hard-hearted. Amanda didn't want to believe what was happening. I would never put my parents in a nursing home. I love them very much, and I will take care of them no matter what happens. And who would want you with all that baggage? Thomas screamed. What normal man would want to marry a woman who has old people sitting on her neck? Your parents are aging rapidly. Your father is a wreck, and they'll be more trouble than they're worth. You need to think about yourself first, about your future. Don't be stupid, Amanda. Shut up, said the girl, who no longer had the will and strength to listen to Thomas. And don't you dare talk badly about my parents. Fuck you, you little brat. You can live with your old people, and I wanted to marry you. Why did I ever get involved with you? With these words, Thomas went quickly to his car, leaving Amanda alone near the cafe from which they had recently left. The girl looked after him. She could hardly believe that 10 minutes ago she had considered this man almost ideal. Amanda returned home, where her mother met her with a smile, informing her that her father was better today, and they even went for a walk in the park. It's been so long since Cody and I have been out, Caroline sighed. It was so nice to walk, to get some fresh air. We fed the ducks in the pond. My mood improved immediately. Dad is asleep now, and I took out a box of yarn. I'm thinking about making a sweater for Cody, a warm one. I'll start slowly, and I'll be done by winter. It'll take my mind off my worries. Knitting calms me down. Good. Amanda was happy for her parents. Sure, knit your dad a sweater. He'll be happy. Do you want to have dinner? Daddy and I already ate. No, Mommy, thanks. I'm not hungry. I had a snack at the cafe. Oh yeah, you've been seeing Thomas. How's the relationship going? Has he proposed yet? I'd like to meet your boyfriend. Thomas and I broke up, Amanda said. What? Mom shook her hands. You said yesterday that you were serious. What happened, daughter? Did he hurt you in some way? He did, Mom. And let's not talk about him anymore, the girl said. She could not tell her mother what she and Thomas had quarreled about. Amanda couldn't get his cruel words out of her head. I can't believe she would suggest such a thing, putting her father in a nursing home. He talked about his grandmother as if she were a stranger. He was only glad that she was put in a boarding school because now he had his own apartment. And all this was told to her by Thomas, the man she had almost managed to love, whom she saw as a future husband and father of her children. It was probably for the best that she'd brought up her parents today and Thomas had reacted that way. She'd been able to see him from a whole new side, and it had been a very unpleasant one. But it was better than if she had become his wife, and then he would have brought up the fact that her parents belonged in a boarding school. The next day, when Amanda arrived at work, Thomas approached her and said a discreet hello. Amanda nodded back, letting him know that they had nothing to talk about. However, the young man asked, "Did you take offense at me a lot for what happened yesterday?" "I wasn't offended," the girl replied. "I was disappointed. I'd overreacted yesterday. I lost my temper. I'm sorry. Let's talk calmly now." "About what, Thomas?" "Yesterday you told me everything, and I heard you and realized that we have completely different views on life." "Amanda, realize that you're a young woman, you have a life to live, and you've got aging parents on your hands." "Thomas, stop it. My parents are not senile. Yes, my dad is often sick, but he's in his right mind, and my mom's still pretty good, but she's worried about my dad because they can't do without each other. 45 years together, they are like a whole. They are an example for me. I would also like to live with my husband like them, and I love them very much. They are wonderful parents. I had a happy childhood. I'm grateful to my mom and dad for everything. What you did with your grandmother is your choice, but I don't need to impose it on you." "Well, let's say your parents are still holding on, but what about 10 years from now, or even 5 years from now?" Thomas was not satisfied. "You see, Amanda, I like you very much, very much. I'd love to marry you. But when I imagine that you will spend your time not with me, but with your old people, and if they are lying down or have problems with their heads, like my grandmother, what then?" "Thomas, then I have a question for you too. What if we get married and I suddenly get seriously ill? What would you do? Leave me? And if I have a sick child, will you leave me too? Because you'll think it's a burden." "What nonsense are you talking about?" exclaimed the young man. "Why should you get sick? You are young, healthy, full of vigor. I am young and healthy too, and we can't have a sick child. Why go to extremes?" "They are not extremes, Thomas. Life is unpredictable, and we are not immune to anything. Absolutely nothing. Today you're young and healthy. Tomorrow something could happen. And our conversation yesterday made it clear to me that you're unreliable, that you can't be relied on in case of any trouble. You're exaggerating. You don't have to make a monster out of me." "I'm not. I'm just saying what I think. We can't be together. We have different views on things that are very important to me. So let's put an end to our relationship. There's no future for us. With such principles, you'll be alone," Thomas said unhappily. "That's none of your business," Amanda replied and went to her office. There was no point in continuing the conversation with her former boyfriend. Thomas made no further attempts to get Amanda back, and after a couple of weeks he started courting Katia, who had joined their company a month ago and was actively making eyes at the young man. Amanda didn't care. They often had heart-to-heart talks, and perhaps only with her could the young woman share her worries and anxieties. Amanda rarely saw her friends, and lately she had stopped seeing them altogether. They had families, children, their own affairs and worries, and Amanda, with her endless problems and difficulties, was generally not interesting to them. She'd understood this well, so she did not seek to communicate, not being in the habit of imposing. But with Violetta, she immediately established a trusting relationship, and it can be said that they became friends. "I too took care of my parents myself until they died," the shopkeeper once said, "but it was much easier for me. My husband helped me well, my children, they loved their grandparents very much, and I have a sister. It's hard for you alone, of course. I wish you had a good husband, Amanda, to help and support you. You're a kind and good girl. You deserve to be happy." I wish I had a son, only a daughter. I would introduce you to my son. I can only dream of having a daughter-in-law like you. Thank you, Violetta, for your kind words. But where to find such a husband? My ex-husband, Thomas, told me that no one needs someone like me with the baggage of elderly parents, and he suggested that I put my father in a nursing home. I love my parents, but I realize that it's unlikely that anyone will need me with my problems. But I can't put my parents in a nursing home. It's very cruel. I'm a fool. This Thomas. He's an idiot, that Thomas, exclaimed Violetta. Don't judge everyone by him. You know, there are plenty of fools in the world, but there are also a lot of good people. Believe me, I've lived twice as long as you, and you know that fate will thank you for your kind heart. Amanda had a day off and decided to go to the market to buy vegetables. Vegetables at the market were cheaper than in the stores, and the young woman now had to save money. After quitting her job, where she had been earning a decent salary, money was tight, and she had to spend a lot of money on medicines and all kinds of examinations for her parent. Her feelings for Thomas were instantly burned out, so strong was her disappointment in him. And when 6 months later, Thomas and Catherine announced to their colleagues that they were getting married, Amanda's heart did not flinch. She also received an invitation to the wedding. The future newlyweds decided to organize a celebration with a bang and invited the entire team. Amanda did not go to the wedding to her former boyfriend, deciding that she had nothing to do there, and there was no desire. However, Thomas, once bumped into Amanda in the office corridor, stopped her by taking her hand and asked, "Do not regret it? It could have been you in Catherine's place." "There was nothing to regret," the girl replied, releasing his hand and hurrying into his office. Time passed. Cody was getting sick more and more often. He was often in the hospital and had 2 surgeries. Amanda and Caroline did everything to keep him healthy, but Mom's health was failing her too, and the worries were endless. "Daughter, I'm so afraid that Daddy will leave us," she shared with Amanda. "I can't do without him. We've been together for so many years. We've become one. We've been through so much. His service is not easy, dangerous missions. When he was wounded, I thought I would go crazy. I prayed day and night for his health. We had no one. My parents left early. They were frontline soldiers, all wounded. And my mom had a short fate. I didn't even remember my father. He left us. So your father and I lived for each other. And then fate gave us such a gift. We had you. It's a miracle. It's a pity it happened so late. If only it had happened sooner, when we were younger." "Mommy," Amanda hugged her mom. "It was the right thing to do. Everything has its time." "You're right, daughter," Caroline smiled. "I used to write a little poetry when I was young, and now I remembered one. Would you like to read it?" "Sure." "Well, listen, but don't judge me harshly. It's a good poem, Mom, so let's not be sad." Amanda was 32 when Cody went down with the disease. The man was almost 80, and the doctor said there was no chance of his recovery. "What do you want, girl age?" the doctor told Amanda. "It's surprising that he lived to such an age after a serious injury. So be brave, be strong." But Cody didn't have long to live. At most 6 months, but most likely he won't live even that. Amanda understood, but still the thought of her daddy's passing made her mopey. It was painful to watch her mom too. She spent most days at her husband's bedside, not eating much, saying she had no appetite. Amanda had to feed her almost from a spoon, constantly coaxing her to eat. It is not for nothing they say that trouble does not come alone. Amanda's life was going downhill. Quite unexpectedly, she was fired from her job. The young woman was being downsized, but she was not surprised that the choice fell on her. In the chair of the boss for a year sat Thomas, and it explained a lot. And "Ashley, everyone has problems, I guess. I have plenty, but why do you need to know about them? It's okay, I can handle it. I'm sorry, but I really have to go." "Amanda, wait, give me your phone number," said a classmate. "Maybe we could call and get together sometime when you have time." "I'm afraid I won't have time soon," Amanda replied, but still dictated her phone number. "Why were you so adamant about not going to the class reunion?" Violetta wondered when Amanda told her about the meeting with Ashley. "Don't you want to see the people you've been in the same class with for so many years? We get together every year. Not the whole class, of course, but whoever can definitely comes. It's always such a positive charge for me. We had a friendly class and years later we are still friends. No, really, why do you refuse? On the contrary, I'd go out, have some fun, relax. I'm not in the mood to go out and have fun. And what am I going to wear? I have only office suits in my closet, which I wore to work, and jeans and t-shirts. I haven't bought a dress in so long, and I don't want to spend money now for one evening. I'm not talking about hair and manicure, and I have to pay for the restaurant, and you know I don't have extra money. No, I'm not going anywhere. Well, my dear, don't think sad thoughts. Violetta almost commanded, which made Amanda smile. I was just about to give you a bonus for good work, so you have money for the restaurant. And as for the dress and hair, it's no problem at all. I have an older daughter who's a hairdresser at a beauty parlor. She will put your hair in order and make a hairstyle that everyone will fall. And she can do manicures and makeup too. And my youngest is skinny like you and has tons of dresses. We'll find something for you. Violetta. Amanda was confused, not knowing what to say. On the one hand, going to a class reunion wouldn't be a bad idea. She hadn't been anywhere for so long. From work, rushing home to her parents. But on the other hand, could she accept what the shopkeeper was offering her? Although she had no doubt that Violetta was offering her help from the bottom of her heart. Amanda, no objections or refusals. And if you're afraid to leave your parents alone, I can stay with you while you're at the restaurant with your classmates. It is not difficult for me, and I have a lot of experience in caring for the elderly, I told you. You should definitely go to this meeting. Understand that you have to go out sometimes, meet people, have a rest. Give yourself a chance to get away from your worries and problems. Otherwise, my dear, you can mope and even get sick. All right, Amanda agreed uncertainly. Thank you very much. That's good. The day after tomorrow, when you have the day off, I'll introduce you to my girls. We'll pick out a dress for you two. Everything will be fine. Amanda, you'll see. Violet hugged Amanda, who wanted to believe that everything would be fine. That same day, Ashley called Amanda. I can't get our meeting out of my head, Candy. I feel like you're in a lot of trouble. And you know, if you don't want to go to the meeting because you don't have the finances, that's not a problem. I'll talk to our people. We'll put up the money for you. I'd really like to get the whole class together. We'd invited some of the teachers too. They promised to be there. Our teacher's gonna be there. It's a good thing you called Ashley, because I gave you my number and didn't ask for yours. You know, I'm still going to the class reunion and I have the money. Just tell me when and where it is. Great. The classmate was happy. I'll give you all the information in Messenger. If anything, call me. I'll see you later. After talking to Ashley, Amanda decided to tell her mom that she was going to the class reunion. Daughter, of course you should go, her mom encouraged. You're always around us old people. You don't go anywhere. You don't meet your friends. And you're a young woman. You need to organize your personal life. We've worn you out. Having said that, Caroline cried. Lately, the woman had been crying a lot, which upset Amanda, who found it hard to see her mother's tears. Don't say that, Mommy, Amanda said, hugging her mom. You know how much I love you and Daddy. I know, my dear, I know. Thank you very much for everything. You are our late, long-awaited happiness, but I don't want you to miss your happiness because of us. So make sure you go to a restaurant, socialize with your classmates and teachers. On her day off, Amanda arrived at Violetta's house as arranged. Violetta's daughters, Amelia and Katie, were already there. They turned out to be very pleasant young women, as friendly and sociable as their mother. The sisters were quite different in appearance. The younger Amelia was very much like her mother, both in face and figure. She was as thin and tall. Daria, on the other hand, was small in stature, chubby and round-faced, but she was very charming, with a warm smile and dimples on her cheeks. She looks like her father, Amanda said, glancing at the family portrait framed on the coffee table in the living room where they were gathered. Violetta said cheerfully as she went into the kitchen. Amanda sincerely admired this woman, the owner of the store where she worked for the third month. Violetta was incredibly energetic, smiling and friendly. She never seemed to be in a bad mood. Now Amanda was even glad that Thomas had fired her. Of course, she had lost her salary and had to work outside her specialty, but fate had given her a chance to meet such a wonderful person as Violetta. And now her daughters. It's so precious when you meet kind and sincere people. Amanda, I brought some dresses for you to try on and choose. With these words, Amelia took the dresses out of a big bag and spread them on the couch. Here, choose whichever one you like best, but it is better to try on all of them. See which one will sit on you perfectly. Although with a figure like yours, you can afford any outfit. I think you'd look good even in a sack. You said a sack, laughed Katie. Come on, Amanka, try on the outfits and we'll vote for the best one. When Violetta entered the living room with a tray in her hands, Amanda was standing in front of the mirror in a soft blue dress that suited her incredibly well. How beautiful, Violetta exclaimed, placing the tray on the table. I think it's exactly what you need. It's just the right dress for you. Forgive me for saying so, Amelia, but I think you'll agree with me. Of course I do, Amelia smiled. Amanda, Mom's right. That dress looks great on you. And by the way, it's lucky. It's the dress I wore the day I met my husband. And you know what? Let me give it to you. I'm sure it'll bring you luck too. No, you don't have to. Amanda tried to refuse, although she liked the dress very much. When she put it on and looked at herself in the mirror, she felt as if she had been born in that dress. If you refuse, I will be offended, said Amelia. I have a lot of dresses, half of which I haven't worn for a long time, so take it, it's yours. Thank you, Amelia, thanked Amanda. She looked at herself in the mirror and couldn't get enough of it. It had been so long since she had seen herself in a dress, and even so beautiful. What a difference a dress makes to a woman, Katie remarked. It makes her more feminine and attractive. Amanda, let your hair down. I want to see what kind of haircut I can give you. Amanda pulled down the elastic band she had used to pull her long hair into a ponytail and turned to Katie. It's nice and thick, Darius said, giving Amanda's hair a professional look, but it's dull and the ends are frayed. That's okay, I'll work on your hair and fix it up. Can you come to my salon tomorrow? Violetta said for Amanda. She had tomorrow off too. And now that we've decided on the dress, let's drink tea, girls. I made my first lemon muffin today and I can't wait to see what I make. Mom, I'm never going to lose weight like this, Katie sighed. But how could I refuse your cupcake? It looks delicious. Of course you can't, laughed Violetta. Dig in, girls, or Katie's going to eat the whole cupcake by herself. Amanda felt so good and cozy in this company that for a while she forgot about all her cares, problems, and worries. She thought about how strange life was, and on the contrary, the one whom you thought to be your own person, whom you trusted, could betray you or stab you in the back when you least expected it. Like she did with Thomas. She was ready to commit her life to him, and he turned out to be so unreliable, petty. And even years later, he reminded her that she didn't want to be with him, firing her from her job at the most difficult time of her life. What are you thinking about, Amanda? Violet asked. Oh, nothing. It's nice to be with you, cozy. Thank you so much for the tea, the companionship, and everything you do for me. I don't even know how to thank you. Come on, Violetta said. Do we expect any gratitude? Although, for me personally, the best gratitude is to see your eyes shine. With happiness, of course. Shall I pour you some more tea? No. Thank you, Violetta. I have to go now. Daddy needs an injection soon, and Mom can't do it herself lately. Her hands shake sometimes. I have to go too. I'll give you a ride, Amelia said. Don't forget I'm expecting you at my salon tomorrow, Katie reminded her. Come by at 1 o'clock and we'll have lunch together. We have a cafeteria nearby. Everything is delicious and the prices are reasonable. Amanda smiled and looked at Violetta, who smiled approvingly back at her. As she walked out of the entryway, Amanda suddenly bumped into Thomas. She had no desire to say hello to him, so she preferred to just walk past him. But the man blocked her way and smiled broadly and asked, How are you doing, Amanda? Did you find a job? Imagine that I did. And it's a good one. And the best part is, you're not there. Let me through. Please, Thomas grinned, stepping aside. Maybe you got married too. Maybe I did. It's none of your business. Good luck. Do you know him? Amelia asked Amanda when they got in the car. I do. Do you know him too? I've seen him a few times. He's my parents' neighbor. I know that there used to be an old woman living in the apartment where he lives. Then they put her in an orphanage and he took the apartment. His grandson, I guess. Yes, grandson, Amanda said. And my ex-boyfriend. I never thought I'd meet him when I went to see Violetta. Small world. I take it you two had a bad breakup, Amelia asked. Badly. And while they were driving, Amanda told Emily about Thomas, including the fact that it was because of him that she was unemployed. What a bastard. Amelia was outraged. But you know, all his meanness will come back to him one day. Amanda returned home in a very good mood, and even meeting Thomas hadn't spoiled it. Amanda had no feelings for this man for a long time, but it was hard for her to understand that a man could be so mean and vindictive. If he took revenge on her for breaking up a short relationship with him, it was scary to imagine how he would take revenge on his ex-wife Catherine for leaving him for another man. Amanda knew that after the divorce, Catherine got married almost immediately and moved to another city with her husband. Perhaps it was a coincidence, or perhaps it was because they didn't want to stay in the same town as Thomas. Somehow Amanda felt that it was his fault that his wife had left him. Thomas was clearly a rotten man, though he knew how to make a good impression. She'd been charmed by him at first, but she'd seen his true colors in time. But stop thinking and thinking about him, Amanda told herself. That man wasn't worth her time and thoughts. Dad was feeling pretty good today. As good as one could feel in his condition. That's why Mom was cheerful too. When Amanda entered the room where her father was lying, Caroline was sitting next to him with a book in her hands, reading him something from the classics. She often read books to her husband, and he loved to listen to her voice, so familiar and soothing. Seeing her daughter, her mother put aside the book and asked, "Is it time for the injection?" And Dad seemed to have fallen asleep. "I'm not asleep," answered the father, without opening his eyes. "Give me your shot. I'm sick of them." "What's the use of them?" "Daddy, don't grumble. If the doctor ordered it, we'll do it," Amanda said affectionately, pulling out of a large box everything necessary for the injection. "Now I think I'm actually going to sleep," Daddy said after the injection. "Get some sleep, Cody," Caroline replied, carefully adjusting the blanket. "I'm going to lie down too. I'll lie down for half an hour, and then I'll make dinner." "What would you like to eat, Cody?" "Galaka. I don't care. You know I'm not picky. I don't have an appetite anyway. I'm eating through force." "Oh, I remember my cadet years. I was always hungry. I couldn't eat enough in the canteen. And now I ate 2 spoonfuls and I'm full. That's what old age and illness do to us. I can't wait to get back to my parents. They must be waiting for me. I can't torture you much longer." "Dad, don't say that. You're upsetting Mom with your words. And me too." "Okay, daughter, I'm sorry about the grumpy old man." Amanda kissed her father on his wrinkled, prickly cheek and led her mother into the living room, which was now their common room. When her father finally went down, Amanda gave him her small room and moved into her mother's larger room. She decided that it would be better. A seriously ill person should have a separate room. Although Caroline insisted to the last to live in the same room with her husband, but Amanda realized that then her mother would not sleep and rest at all, and in the end would drive herself to sleep. And who would be better off? Amanda covered her with a soft blanket and went to the kitchen to prepare a light supper. Having managed in the kitchen, the young woman decided to try on the dress again, this time with shoes. She let her hair down and twirled around in front of the large mirror in the hallway. And at that moment, her cell phone rang in her purse. The number was no longer in her phone book, but Amanda remembered it by heart. It was Thomas. What more did he want from her? After hesitating for a while, Amanda answered the phone. "Hello again," said the familiar voice she didn't want to hear. "What do you want, Thomas?" Amanda asked. "Why won't you leave me alone? It's just not working out. I saw you today and I can't forget you. Why are you so ingrained in my memory and in my soul? Did you cast a spell on me?" Amanda thought Thomas' voice sounded a little strange. Slurred. "Are you drunk?" she guessed. "I'm entitled to a little relaxation after a hard day's work," the man replied. "Do you think it's easy to sit in the boss's chair?" "I have no idea. I have never sat in this chair. And before you did not drink at all. Are you going to tell me off?" "No, I don't care if you're drunk or sober. I just don't understand why you're calling me. I've been doing some research on you. You're a saleswoman." Thomas laughed, and his laughter gave Amanda an unpleasant sting. "Isn't that creepy? You have a red diploma. Where I work is none of your business, and I like my job." Oh, how rude we are. I mean, I'm ready to forgive you and take you back, but on one condition. I don't need your forgiveness. Amanda's patience was almost breaking and she was getting angry, especially since I'm not guilty of anything in front of you. You left me and I loved you, you fool. I loved you. Do you understand? I didn't love Katia. I started seeing her despite you. I thought you'd get jealous and want me back, but you traded me for those old people who belong in an almshouse. Shut up, Amanda said rudely, which was not her usual way, but she couldn't listen to Thomas's nonsense any longer. You didn't love me because a man like you can't love anyone but yourself. I just hurt your feelings, that's all. That's why you get mad and take your anger out on me. I'm never coming back to you or to work while you're there. And don't ever call me again. Forget my number and forgive me too. Saying that, Amanda disconnected and immediately blacklisted Thomas' number. Why did he call? Such a nice day today, and he ruined it with his drunken ramblings. Why are you yelling like that, daughter? Caroline asked, looking out into the hallway. What happened? Who called? They offered me a loan. They'd had enough. I'm sorry, Mommy. Did I wake you up? No, I was awake. I fell asleep for about 10 minutes and woke up. Are you going somewhere? That's a beautiful dress. I told you about the class reunion, so I'm trying it on. Do you like it? I love it. You're so beautiful in that dress, just like a movie star. It's good that you bought yourself a dress. You were always wearing jeans and sneakers. The dress was given to me, Mommy. Amanda smiled and told Caroline about the time she had spent with Violetta today. What nice people. God bless them, said Mommy. Our world would have collapsed long ago, drowned in anger, if there were no such kind and sympathetic people. It's a pity that not everyone is like that. There are a lot of scoundrels too. Yes, it's a pity. Amanda agreed with her mother, remembering her conversation with Thomas. Go show your dad if he's awake. Let him see how beautiful you are. The day of the class reunion came. Amanda had been nervous all morning. Her father had taken a turn for the worse today, and Amanda wondered whether she should go to the meeting at all. She was anxious, and the young woman was afraid that something would happen in her absence, and her mother would be confused. But her mother, realizing how much her daughter wanted to go to the meeting, calmed Amanda, assuring her that everything would be all right. Amanda remembered that Violetta offered her to stay with her parents while she was at the party, but Amanda did not dare to take advantage of this offer because she was afraid of abusing Violetta's kind attitude towards her. However, the store owner herself called Amanda and asked if she needed help. When she heard that Cody had taken a turn for the worse, the woman said, "Okay, Amanda, don't panic too soon, and don't give up on the party. You deserve it. Dashka and I will be here today to help you get ready. Kitty will make you up, and I'll stay with you to make sure you and your mom are comfortable. We've already met Caroline, so give her a heads up. We'll have a heart-to-heart. We'll have tea. She wanted to show me the family album last time, so we'll see. I can't thank you enough, Violetta. You do so much for me. Amanda, we've been over this. You don't need to thank me. Just be happy. You know, I'm a happy person. I've been blessed with a lot of good things in life, and I just want everyone around me to be happy. Of course, it's impossible, but if I can do anything for the happiness of a good person, I'll do it. That's my nature, and I brought up my daughters that way. You have to help people if you can help them. Yes, your daughters are wonderful. Thank you." At 6 o'clock in the evening, beautiful and dressed up Amanda got into a cab and went to the restaurant to meet her classmates. She felt anxious, but it wasn't anxiety for her parents, who stayed at home under Violetta's watchful eye. Amanda was worried because she hadn't seen her classmates and teachers for a long time, some since the day they graduated from high school. It was a pleasant excitement, the anticipation of a joyous reunion. Are you going to some kind of celebration? Amanda was asked by the cab driver, a nice gray-haired man who was also very talkative. Yes, a class reunion. When did you graduate from high school, dear young lady? About 5 years ago, maybe. No, it's been 15 years. Wow, I thought you were as old as my daughter, but she just turned 25. You look great. Thank you, Amanda smiled, thinking to herself that the cab driver was exaggerating, but she was still incredibly pleased. Katie was a real professional after all. She was a professional. She was magic. Amanda didn't recognize herself in the mirror today when Violetta's eldest daughter did her makeup and beautifully styled her hair. Caroline cried when she saw her daughter. "How beautiful you are," said the old woman, admiring her little girl. "She is not only beautiful, but also very clever," Violetta praised Amanda. "That's true, but I want her to be happy too. She will beat Carolina, don't doubt it," Violetta said confidently. "And this dress, by the way, is a happy one. Maya Rinka met her destiny in it. May Amanda be lucky too." "Oh, God willing, I pray for it every day," Caroline sighed, wiping away her tears. "If my daughter met a good man, then I could die in peace." "What are you talking about?" Violetta hugged Amanda's mom. "You don't need to hurry to the other world. Live a long time, you still have grandchildren to wait for." "Grandchildren are such a blessing. I have 3. I love those little rascals." Amanda got out of the cab and headed towards the restaurant building. On the porch stood several people in whom the woman recognized her classmates. They all looked in her direction, and Vidya Smirnov exclaimed enthusiastically, "Wow, Candy, is that you? That's someone I haven't seen since graduation." "That's me," Amanda smiled. "Hi, everybody, nice to see you." "Hello, hello," the rest of the class responded. "What are you guys doing stuck in here?" Ashley asked, looking out the door of the restaurant. "Let's go to the auditorium. Everyone's waiting." "Oh, Candy, hi. You look great." "Thanks, Ashley," Amanda replied, remembering her recent encounter with Ashley when her classmate had probably been surprised by her unattractive appearance. It was strange that she recognized her at all. Amanda couldn't believe that she was the tired, bruised woman who looked several years older than her age. Today, she saw herself as a beautiful and young woman again. Almost the whole class and several teachers, including Valentina Arkadyevna, the class teacher of their former 11th A class, were gathered around the tables filled with food and drinks. The woman was already retired, but continued to work, could not think of herself without her favorite school and her students. "How glad I am to see you all, my dear children," said Debbie, who was the first to be given the floor. "Of course, you have grown up long ago and many of you have children of your own. But I look at you now and again I see those mischievous and funny 5th graders you were more than 20 years ago. I am happy that all of you have grown up to be worthy people, found your own way, on which you are now going towards your dreams and goals. Do not be afraid to set new goals and achieve them. Do not be afraid to dream, even about what seems unrealizable. You will succeed. And remember, whatever happens, you can always turn to me for advice or help, my dear students, my favorite children." After saying these touching words, the old teacher cried, and some of her former students, including Amanda, could not hold back their tears either. The reunion turned out to be very warm, heartfelt, and fun. The invited host prepared an exciting program. There were a lot of contests and games, a lot of dancing, and of course, a lot of conversations and memories. The former classmates had a lot to remember and talk about. Amanda was happy that she went to the reunion. It had been a long time since she had gotten such a lot of positive emotions in one evening. In the middle of the party, Amanda went outside to call Violetta to see if everything was all right at home. Despite the wonderful fun evening, Amanda was still uneasy. "All is well with us, Amanda. Have fun and don't worry. Cody had dinner and went to sleep, and your mom and I are having tea and looking at pictures. She tells us so interestingly about everything. Wonderful woman, your mom." After talking to Violetta, Amanda decided to stay outside a little longer. It was stuffy in the banquet hall and she wanted to get some fresh air. She thought about it and did not immediately notice that a strange man stopped next to her. "Good evening, dear girl," he said, and Amanda flinched in surprise. "Hello," she replied, glancing at the stranger. He looked to be about 35 years old, tall, handsome. "Excuse me, I saw you in the restaurant and was struck by your beauty. Perhaps I'm saying banal things now, but it's true. I like you very much. May I ask your name?" "Ah, Amanda." "Amanda," repeated the man. "That's a beautiful name. And I'm Jacob. Nice to meet you, Jacob. I want to tell you right away that I'm single and my heart is free. Although I'm not so sure about that now. I look at you and realize more and more that this is the kind of girl I've always dreamed of. You don't know me at all. But what if I'm married?" Amanda looked at Jacob and realized that the man didn't seem impudent or pushy, although he was acting a little assertive. "Are you married?" Jacob asked, and Amanda saw a slight change in his face. "No," she said. "Oh, that's a relief," he exclaimed and smiled. "But that doesn't mean anything. I'm not in the mood for dating," said Amanda, who now thought about her parents and what Thomas had said to her. No man would want to be with her while she was taking care of her elderly parents. These words were like sharp needles in her soul and prevented her from believing that she would be able to find happiness as a woman someday. And she has no time to think about her personal life. The young woman suddenly felt like Cinderella, whose carriage after midnight will turn into a pumpkin, an incredibly beautiful dress into rags. Today, on this holiday, she feels like a princess, but tomorrow she will return to her life, filled with endless worries and problems. "Did someone hurt you?" Jacob asked. "Just say the word, and I'll teach your abuser a lesson." "No one has wronged me." "Thank you for your kind words, Jacob, but I'm going to go to mine." "It's your class reunion today, isn't it?" "Yeah, 15 years since I graduated high school." "Wow, you look like you graduated about 5 years ago." "You're not the first person to tell me that today," Amanda smiled, remembering the cab driver's words. "Amanda, can I ask for your phone number? I won't forgive myself if a girl I like so much takes off and disappears." Amanda thought for a moment, then dictated her number to Jacob and returned to the restaurant, where her classmates engaged her in another fun contest. She was sure the man wouldn't call her, and if he did, it wouldn't oblige her to do anything. But for some reason, she felt both happy and sad at the same time. Amanda returned home at midnight, even though her classmates were still partying. She felt awkward in front of Violetta, even though she had told Amanda not to worry and to stay at the meeting as long as she wanted. When she got home, she took off her shoes with pleasure. It had been so long since she had worn heeled shoes that she felt a noticeable fatigue in her feet. Violetta met her in the hallway. "Amanda, your parents are asleep." "It's okay," she whispered. "How did you have a good time yourself?" "I had a great time." "Thank you so much, Violetta." "You're welcome. It was my pleasure. I'll see you at work on Monday and you can tell me all about it, okay?" "Sure. Okay, I'm going home. Get some rest." Amanda closed the door behind Violetta, took a shower, and gladly crawled under the covers. But she couldn't fall asleep quickly. She thought back to the pleasant events of the previous evening, and her heart filled with warmth and hope. Amanda thought about Jacob. She liked the man and she thought she would like to see him again. But would he want to talk to her after hearing about her complicated life? That beautiful girl from the restaurant and the real Amanda are very different from each other. With these thoughts, the young woman fell into a dream. In the morning, barely awake, she heard the signal of her cell phone. From an unknown number in one of the messengers, she received a postcard wishing her a good morning and a good day. And then there was a message. "Dear Amanda, please write at what time it will be convenient for you to talk. I look forward to hearing from you. Jacob." Amanda smiled, looked at her watch, and told the man that he could call her in an hour. She was going to go to the market for vegetables, and she would be able to talk to Jacob on the way there. Amanda washed her face and went to the kitchen to make breakfast. But there was already a stack of pancakes on the kitchen table and a pot of millet porridge on the stove. "Good morning, daughter." Caroline smiled. "I haven't slept since 5 o'clock this morning, and I thought, what's the use of lying in bed when I can bake pancakes and boil porridge? Sit down to breakfast." "Thanks, Mommy. How are you feeling?" "How's Daddy?" "I fed Daddy, gave him all his medicine. He seems to be doing better. He slept well, and I'm fine. My blood pressure's fine." "How was your time last night? Tell me about it. I was waiting for you, but then I fell asleep." "Thanks a lot to Violetta for keeping me company. What a wonderful woman she is." Amanda told her mother about last night, about her classmates and teachers, about the fun games and contests. She didn't tell her mom about meeting Jacob. She knew how much Caroline wanted her daughter to meet a good man, a real man, but it was too soon to tell her mother about it. One brief meeting and a couple of compliments didn't tell her anything. Amanda decided to talk to Jacob on the phone during her trip to the market so that her mother wouldn't overhear her conversation. Amanda put her hair in a ponytail, put on jeans and comfortable sneakers, and went to the market. No sooner had she left the house than her cell phone rang. Amanda pulled the phone out of her bag and smiled. Jacob called exactly 1 hour later, minute to minute. It was as if he had been sitting there waiting for the moment to make the call. Barely waited for the opportunity to hear your voice again, Amanda, the man said. They talked for 20 minutes. The entire time Amanda walked leisurely to the market. She deliberately took her time. She was interested in talking to this man. But then she said, Jacob, I can't talk anymore for now. Let's call later. Amanda, I'm sorry to ask. Where are you located? I hear there's a lot of noise around you. I'm at the market for vegetables, as Amanda said. For vegetables? Jacob asked. You must be loaded. Do you have someone to help you, or are you going to do the heavy lifting yourself? I don't have help, but it's okay. I'm used to it. No, Amanda. I'm sorry, but this isn't right. A fragile girl shouldn't be carrying heavy bags. Okay, here's the deal. Tell me where the market is, and I'll come by car to take you home and help you with the bags. No, Jacob? Amanda exclaimed, a little startled by the surprise. It's completely unnecessary. I can do it myself. It's not unnecessary, it's normal. And besides, I really want to see you. Let's combine the two. What's the address? And Amanda dictated the address. Great, the man was pleased. It's not too far from my house. I'll be there soon. I'll call you when I get there. The young woman paused in confusion, then thought it might be for the best. Let Jacob see her as she really was. Unmade, plainly dressed. Maybe he wouldn't recognize her at all, and she'd tell him about her parents right away. Let her know everything from the beginning. And this will probably be the last time they meet. But it wouldn't hurt her. She wouldn't have time to get used to him, wouldn't have time to fall in love with him. And she could fall in love with this man. She liked Jacob. In the meantime, since he'd offered to help, she could get more vegetables to last her a while. It's not exactly a pleasure to carry heavy bags. Not for a frail woman. Jacob was absolutely right. 15 minutes later, the man called Amanda and told her he'd left his car in the parking lot and was on his way to the market to help her. Not even yesterday, when she had driven to a classmate reunion, had she been this excited. She imagined the disappointed look on Volodya's face when he saw her, but it was different. Jacob recognized her immediately, smiled, and immediately took the heavy bags from her hands. Is there anything else you want? He asked. Let's go with you, agreed? I'm in. I'd like to buy some more fruit and greens. Okay, the man nodded and then asked, You've got so much, obviously not for yourself, right? I live with my parents, Amanda replied. They're elderly, my dad is lying down, and my mom's health is failing. I see, Jacob nodded. Let's go get some fruit, shall we? So you live with your parents and take care of them? Jacob asked as he and Amanda got into the car. Yes, I'm the only late child in the family, and my mom and dad never thought they'd have children, and then I was born. That's great, Jacob said after a moment's thought. You have parents, it's such a blessing. Amanda looked at Jacob in surprise. Of course, she had not expected him, like Thomas, to immediately suggest that she put her parents in a boarding school, but she had not expected him to be as happy as if he had heard about her situation. I don't have parents, Jacob sighed sadly, starting the car. My dad died before I was 2, so I don't even remember him. My mom had a heart condition, and the doctors wouldn't even let her give birth, but she took the risk, and still she was gone when I was 7 years old. She managed to take me to school, to the 1st grade, and a month later she died. My aunt, my mother's sister, raised me. I'm grateful to her, of course, although our relationship was not very good. I was difficult, I was a hooligan. I was always in contact with bad companies. Aunt Rita had a hard time with me, but still did not give me to the orphanage. And then it still took up my mind. After school, I went to the army. There I finally got my brains in place. My goals in life appeared. I got a profession, graduated from the institute by correspondence. But I didn't have a family. I was married, but it didn't work out. We separated. So, Amanda, having a mom and dad is such a blessing. Will you introduce me to your parents sometime? You'd really like to meet them? Of course I would. I'm very serious about you, Amanda. Don't think I'm throwing words around. I don't. It's just that this is all happening so fast. We just met yesterday. Let's not rush things, okay? Let's not, but I'm pretty sure you're the woman I want. And by the way, I like you as much today as I did yesterday. I was afraid you wouldn't recognize me at all today, Amanda smiled, and that you'd be disappointed when you did. No, on the contrary. Yesterday you were dazzlingly beautiful, and I was afraid you wouldn't want to talk to me. I was afraid you'd be arrogant, but you're very kind and sincere, and these are the most important qualities in people for me." The car ride to Amanda's house took less than 5 minutes. Jacob took the bags into the apartment and was about to leave when Caroline came into the hallway, and Amanda had to introduce him to her mom. She introduced him as an acquaintance who had kindly offered to help, but Mom immediately guessed that this was no longer just an acquaintance. It's been a year and a half. Let's find out what has changed in the lives of our heroes during this time. I think that my dear readers have already guessed that the dress in which Amanda went to the meeting of classmates, and indeed, turned out to be happy. Maybe it wasn't the dress at all, but that night our main character met her destiny. Their relationship with Jacob developed very quickly. He turned out to be a good and reliable man, able to love and take care of his beloved woman. And Amanda's heart also opened towards this love. Cody had time to rejoice for his daughter, who found her feminine happiness, and soon he was gone. Caroline had a hard time with the death of her beloved husband, but Amanda and Jacob surrounded her with care and attention, making her realize that she is not alone. She has a family. There are people who love her and who need her very much. And soon Amanda told her mother that she would have a grandson or granddaughter, and this gave the old woman the strength to live on. After meeting Jacob, Amanda managed to find a job in her specialty, and she quit the store. But with Violetta, they continued to communicate, and with Katie and Amelia became friends. Amanda and Jacob signed, deciding to do without a wedding. Now our heroes are preparing for the birth of a baby. They did not recognize the sex of the child in advance, as they will be equally happy with both a boy and a girl. But they have already thought of names for the future baby. If a boy is born, they will call them Molly, and if a girl, Molly, in honor of Jacob's mother. Sometimes it seems that life has reached a dead end, from which it is almost impossible to find a way out. But that's when we can have people in our lives who will lend a helping hand. That's what happened in Amanda's life. After a series of troubles and hardships, fate stopped testing her for strength and brought our heroine together with good people, thanks to whom her life got better and gained new meaning. John grew up in a very wealthy family. He never had a problem with money. His parents provided him with everything he needed and more, and he was allowed not to work until he was old, although he never worked a day in his 33 years. So sometimes he pretended to help his father. He held a management position in his company, but in fact, he did nothing useful. John wasn't too interested in his father's business. He was more interested in traveling the world. His passport was dotted with stamps from various countries where he had been. It seemed that everything was perfect in his life. His own apartment in Washington, spacious and bright, with luxury renovation and luxury furniture. An expensive car given by his parents on his 30th birthday, although he had been driving since he was 18. But back then, cars were simpler. 34 million maybe, and now this beautiful Bentley. People turned their heads when he drove by. He was always surrounded by crowds of beautiful girls who looked at him with wide open eyes and dreamed of marrying him. True, John was in no hurry to marry. "Yes, of course. Did you want something?" The girl asked him quietly. "Oh yes, I would like you to have dinner with me tonight," John said triumphantly. "Thank you, but I can't," she replied calmly. John was rarely refused, not only at work, but in life in general. As a rule, the smell of his money attracted girls wherever he was. "Why can't you?" "Can't get off work." "I'll take care of it." "No, please don't. I can't because I'm getting married in 2 months. I don't really date anyone but my fiancé. But I'm very grateful to you for inviting me." "I can make you," John said and smiled. "I don't think so," Julian replied somewhat defiantly, "or rather, I hope you'll be reasonable." "What if I'm not so sensible?" he asked, trying to sound charming. "Then I'm afraid I'll have to tell your father," Julian replied quietly. "And what? My father's not the boss of me. And besides, he'll do anything I ask him to do. Even fire you if I want him to." "John, I'm afraid I don't want to continue this conversation. I'm sorry, but I have a lot of work to do. And while I still hold my position, I want to do my best. Please," she said, stepped closer and gestured for him to leave. He didn't like that at all. He stormed out of her office like a bullet and headed for his father. He, as it turned out, was not at his desk. Frank had warned Human Resources a couple years ago that his son couldn't fire anyone he wanted. There was a similar situation where a girl his son liked didn't want to give in to him. True, that girl was just playing the role of a hussy, but still it was unacceptable. John could not fire Julian himself. He needed his father, so he decided to wait. The next day he came to the office again, which surprised the other employees even more. Miley even thought that her boss had changed his mind and tried to hint to him about sex again, but she was disappointed again. Upon entering the office, John, "You're dating my father. Don't deny it. It's written all over your face. There's a reason you're so scared. Even if he doesn't want to fire you, he'll have to when I tell my mother. She'll put him in his place in no time." "You're very wrong," Julian said with a smile, pleased that he didn't really know anything. "If you don't believe me, ask your father. We have a strictly business relationship. That's what you'll tell the labor exchange when you come to look for a new job." He cut him off, but then he seemed to change his anger into mercy. "But I can still change my mind. All you have to do is have dinner with me." Just then, Julian's cell phone rang. She looked at the screen and put her dainty finger to her lips, signaling that she needed a moment. "Hello, sweetie. Yes, I'm a little busy, but if it's quick, go ahead." A man's voice came from the phone. "What is it?" "Grilled salmon or king prawns in wine sauce." "I'll have the salmon. It's amazingly delicious." "Okay, I'll see you tonight then. Love you. Bye." The girl looked carefully at John, who was listening to the conversation, and then said, "See, I already have plans for tonight. I'm sorry. We may not wait until tonight. We can go without a date. I like you," he said and stepped forward. "That's out of the question. I already told you I'm getting married soon. I love my Mickey. Please go away. I have work to do," she insisted. "You do realize that I can buy you and your Mickey master in this whole town?" John answered her angrily. "I'm not used to being turned down, especially not twice. You're digging your own hole." "Then I'll have to dig it deeper to make a pool," Julian joked, which made him even angrier. "Fine, take it out on yourself." He walked out of her office, but he was angry with himself for some reason. "Why did she give up on you? She said no and she said no. Let her go. You got plenty of girls who will do anything for you. Why do you need that gray office mouse?" John went to the bathroom, washed his face, and was on his way back to his office when he saw that Julian was in a hurry. He decided to follow her. The girl walked out into the parking lot, looked around, and headed straight for an expensive SUV, which the man easily recognized as his father's car. So he was right, and they're together. But before he told his mother, John decided to get proof. He took out his iPhone and turned on the camera, but he didn't have time to take any pictures because the car touched down and drove to the parking lot exit. His Bentley wasn't far away. He quickly started it up and decided to play detective. Frank and Julianne drove to a cozy cafe not far from their office. Apparently, they were going to have lunch. Perhaps they had other plans for later. John noted that all the tables were separated from each other by translucent screens. All he had to do was sneak to the next table to overhear what they were talking about. 2 minutes later, he was already sitting behind them, listening to every word. Julian was clearly not happy. "Can't you just explain it to him so he'll stop hitting on me?" "That's too much," the girl said resentfully. "I already told you, just ignore him. Tomorrow he'll meet someone else and forget about you. It's always like that." "Don't worry. At least you know I won't fire you," his father said and kissed the girl's hand. John became more and more convinced that there was something between them, but that made the girl seem even more desirable to him. If even her father appreciated her, that he should definitely try her. What was it that attracted him so much? "At least that makes me glad," Julian replied and rested her head on his shoulder. "Have I told you how proud I am of you? You're such a smart girl, and you shined at the meeting today. I sometimes wish I could tell everyone about you. You're amazing. You're my treasure. Sometimes I even think it would be easier if John knew the truth. Maybe you two could even be friends. I'd like that too. But you said yourself you can't, and if you do, there's no turning back." John was now completely convinced that they were lovers. There was no point in listening any further. He got up from the table and disappeared from the cafe. He didn't know what to do. Should he tell his mother? And who would be disadvantaged if they divorced? There were too many questions again, and so few answers. In the end, after much deliberation, John decided he had to break up their relationship. His mother was more precious to him. and he didn't want his father to divorce her. He came up with the only sure way to do it: sleep with Julianne. Then his father would leave her for sure. John felt he was doing it for the good of the family. Plus, he'd satisfy his lust. He called a guy he met in HR, asked him for Julianne's address for something important, and that night he went to her house. Turns out the girl lives in one of DC's finest new buildings. Judging by the layout, it was a large 2-bedroom apartment. She obviously couldn't afford a place like this. John didn't doubt that. He parked farther away from her driveway, but so he could see who was coming in. He didn't have to wait long. At 7:30, her black Audi pulled up. The girl was clearly in a hurry. No wonder she was going on a date with her fiancé. I wonder why she should get married if she's dating my father. How did he let her do that? I don't really care though. There's no telling how she'll spin it to him. John got out of his car and followed her. Julianne quickly parked and headed for the driveway. She opened the door without noticing that there was someone behind her. John literally shoved her into the doorway, grabbed her elbow, and led her to the elevator. She was surprised, but not angry. "What do you want here?" The girl was indignant and tried to push him away. "Come on, we're not finished." When they got into the elevator, he confidently pressed the 9 on the panel and smiled evilly. "How do you know where I live?" "I know a lot of things. You have no idea. Now we're gonna go to your place, and I'll tell you everything. I'll even show you some of it." "No, you can't go to my place." "No, you can't. My mom's home." "So your mom's going out for half an hour. You'll have to convince her somehow." "No, you don't understand. You don't understand, my dear. I don't know why, but I liked you right away, and I won't rest until I get what's mine. If you won't do it my way, you'll do it my way." In fact, this behavior was completely out of character for John. He'd never done anything like this before. But at that moment, he was out of his mind. The elevator doors opened and John literally pushed Julianne out of it. She tried to hide her keys in her jacket pocket, but he noticed and snatched them away. Holding her hand, he opened the apartment door himself and pulled her inside. John pressed Julianne against the wall and tried to kiss her as a friend heard footsteps coming from the hallway. "Julianne, is that you, daughter?" Came a voice behind him. The voice was very familiar. It was as if he had heard it many times, but John couldn't remember where or when. He turned to look at the owner of the voice, and he couldn't believe his eyes. It was Ariana, a woman from his past. He could hardly even recognize her. She was all grown up now. He just said out of habit, "Nanny." Ariana used to work for the family. She raised little John from the time he was a baby. She left them when he was 7 or so. He remembered asking his mom to bring back his favorite nanny, but she just said she'd find another one. And she did. I mean, she found another one almost every 2 weeks, because none of them could get along with the spoiled boy. Eventually, he was sent to a private school for rich kids who knew how to get along with them, and he didn't need a nanny, but John still resented Ariana for abandoning him then. Ariana looked at him and couldn't say a word. "Mommy," Julianne said and rushed over to the woman. Thanks to her daughter's touch, she was finally able to snap out of her stupor. "What are you doing here?" Ariana asked, turning to John. "I just stopped by to chat with my favorite nanny." "What a surprise. Is this your daughter?" "Yes, this is my Julianne," his former nanny replied cautiously. John tried to recall the conversation in the cafe and now realized it had been about something else entirely. Juliana was not his father's mistress. Ariana had been, and she was his daughter. Wow. "Is that why you left us back then? You had an affair with my father and got knocked up by him," John said rudely. "It wasn't exactly like that, but if you want details, you should talk to your father. It's not for me to tell you." "All right," John answered, and without taking his shoes off, he went into the living room, sat down in a chair, and continued, "Then call him. Tell him to come over and tell you everything." The thought of what he had just almost done to his own sister made him feel a little ashamed. But John chased those thoughts away. Ariana dialed Frank's number and asked him to come over. All she said was that his son was here. "He'll be here soon," Ariana said more calmly. "What can I get you? Tea or coffee?" "A whiskey would be better." "No, buddy, you're driving. No whiskey." "Buddy." That's what she used to call him when he was little. It's as engraved in his memory as his nanny. He loved her very much once, perhaps even more than his mother, but then that went away. Buddy, I'm not Buddy anymore. Don't call me that, he said with annoyance. Okay, I won't. You used to like it, she said, and smiled. What a beautiful smile she had. John had forgotten how much he used to enjoy spending time with her. He was just a kid then. Nanny was always there for him. She loved to play with him. They were always together. She even put him to bed every night. Mom was always busy. She was still busy. John was sad to think of it all. It hurt him when Nanny left. Maybe that's why he was angry at the world, or rather, he was now. Back then, he felt like she'd abandoned him, betrayed him, and he didn't understand why it had happened, until now. Ariana went into the kitchen and made tea. She was gone for about 5 minutes while Julian and John sat across from each other silent. The woman returned with 3 cups of tea and a vase of cookies. She placed the tray on the coffee table and gestured for him to help himself. But John didn't. Julian took her mug and 1 cookie from the crystal vase. He just gave her an angry look. What? I want tea. If you don't want it, don't drink it, was all she said, as if they'd known each other a long time. So you're my sister-in-law? Why, I'd have a legal father. Even on the certificate, the girl said, but her mother cut her off. Julian, honey, let's wait for Frank. I'm begging you. The girl only nodded and continued drinking her tea. They were all silent. The room was uncomfortable with this dry silence. Suddenly, John heard someone opening the door with the keys. It was his father. Turns out he even had his own key to the apartment. Hi, son, can we talk? Said the father calmly. Well, come on, I'll be very interested to hear how you cheated on my mother. Tell me how you knocked up my nanny. How you hid your daughter for so many years, and why the hell did you hire her? The son sarcastically replied. Well, we can talk like this if you want. Your mother and I have been living like strangers for a long time. We haven't slept together in years. She has a lover, maybe even 2. I mean, they change all the time. I don't keep track of her affairs anymore. But in case you're wondering, she's the one who killed our love. She cheated on me first. I wanted to leave her, but then she threatened me that if I divorced her, I'd never see my son again. And she wasn't kidding. So for years we've been playing at being married. And Ariana, I love her. I have for years. But you know what it means to love her. You were once very attached to her yourself. John seemed to listen to him, but he didn't hear him. Who are you kidding? If you wanted to leave your mom, there'd be nothing to stop you. So you've just been lying to her all these years, and you've been lying to her. Lovers? At mom's? How could you even think of that? Actually, here's the thing. She has some dirt on me, a long time ago, but she's been hiding it for years. In public, we always play the happy couple roles, and those were her terms, not mine. She knows nothing about Ariana, much less Julian, and I want to keep it that way. And if she does, what? She'll hurt them. I know her, but I can't do anything about it. It's easier for me to hide it. Why should I believe you? Because you're old enough to make your own decisions. At least I hope so. You know your mother. Catherine is cold and calculating. She's the one who put you in a boarding school when you were just a boy. I tried to stop her, but she wouldn't listen. How much warmth or motherly care have you gotten from her over the years? She gave me a Bentley. Isn't that the best expression of love? That's why I raised you to be such a mercenary, son. I had a good example in front of me. You got your love for money from your mom. You always thought money could buy happiness. She doesn't love anything but money. That's why she gave me the Bentley. Only she bought it with my money, in case you remember. Yeah, and she told me she wanted me to do better than anyone else. And she may not have been a drooling sissy like other moms who blow the dust off their kids. But that doesn't make her a bad mom. What did you get me? Some stupid sweater? Is that how you appreciate me? Actually, Ariana made that sweater, and she knitted it with love for you. I just couldn't tell you that. And by the way, Ariana picked out a lot of your other birthday presents too. Although you didn't appreciate them, because you only appreciate money. Anyway, please don't say anything to your mother. Will you do that for me? John looked at his father and could not believe his ears. In fact, the realization that the sweater was knitted by his former nanny for some unknown reason echoed in his soul with a strange feeling. Joy. But from where? He hated the thought of his father hiding his second family for years. On one condition, John said, and it was obvious he was thinking of something. What was that? That neither this Julian nor your Ariana would be in the will. His father looked at John sternly. He was uncomfortable with what his own son was saying. No, it won't work that way. Julian is my daughter, and Ariana is my real wife. Not on paper, though. She's been there for me all these years. Son, I love you, but your mother, she wouldn't have let us be together, even though I've been asking her for a divorce for years. I can tell you one thing for sure. If you tell her, I'll go to jail, and everyone will be left with nothing, including you. So it's up to you. I'm willing to take responsibility for my actions. Are you? I'll decide what I'm ready for. John snapped at her, then jumped up from his chair and left the apartment. Ariana was upset. On the one hand, she was sorry for what had happened. On the other hand, she hadn't seen John in a very long time, except in pictures. He had grown up to be such a handsome and strong man. When John was little, she had adored him. When Ariana was only 18 years old, she got a job as a nanny for a rich family. She needed the money badly. She was a correspondence student, but she couldn't pay her tuition. Her parents left her to her grandmother a long time ago. The first months, she didn't even notice Frank, though he noticed her right away. He liked the young girl who looked after his son so tenderly and reverently. His wife Catherine was cold with his son and in general, although she seemed wonderful when they first met. She didn't care about her own child, which was why there was room for a nanny in their home. Frank saw that with Ariana's arrival, his son was happier. Secretly, he wished it was his wife who was so kind and affectionate to their son. But with each passing year, it became clearer that she could not even be expected to do so. The initiator of the relationship between Ariana and Frank was he himself. She resisted for a long time. She didn't want to break up his family. But when she realized and saw with her own eyes that there was no family, she gave up, especially since she had long ago fallen in love with the boy's father. At first, they loved each other secretly. There were many rooms in the house. You could hide in any of them. But when Ariana got pregnant, Frank made her quit her job. She didn't want to leave John. She missed him for a long time, but there was no choice. Frank put his beloved in a small apartment not far from their now former office. She lived there with her daughter for the first 5 years. He visited them whenever he could and helped them with money. For a few years, they lived in a 3-bedroom apartment in a bedroom community far from the center. Frank was always very careful. He didn't want his wife to guess anything. When the company's income became many times higher, he bought Ariana a large, cozy apartment in a new building where his son visited today. Frank raised Julian with love and tenderness. He made sure that she had a good education. He himself often liked to talk to her about adult topics, even when she was just a baby. He liked how bright and serious his daughter had been since childhood. At times like this, he regretted that he had been less involved with John. It was a bad idea to send him to a boarding school, but there was nothing he could do to change that. His son was old enough to ignore his parents and their interference in his life. When Julian graduated, her father offered her a job at his company. She started out in the lowest positions so as not to arouse the suspicion of others. But in time, she made it to the position that was meant for her in the first place. Ariana loved Frank all these years, and he loved her. She was his outlet, his soulmate. In her arms, he always found tenderness and support. Like many other wealthy people, Frank started his business not the most honest way. Although there was nothing criminal, his wife found out about everything, even before the wedding. She had evidence that could compromise his entire business, so he had to fulfill all her wishes. In secret, Frank hoped that Catherine would meet another man, fall in love, and leave him. But over the years, he realized that it was a foolish hope. His wife, in principle, could not love anyone. She was only interested in money and sex, and for her own pleasure, she would occasionally have lovers, but then left them without regret. Catherine grew up in a family of metropolitan marginalized. Her parents didn't just adore her, they laid everything they had at her feet, and in return laid on her all their dreams, which she was bound to realize. Married, the daughter stopped communicating with her parents from the word completely. She considered them unworthy and pathetic. Pride was more precious to her than anything else, even money. She was so proud of herself. when she was able to get a rich Pinocchio in the person of Frank, which greatly increased her social status in the eyes of the public. And she didn't want to lose him for any reason. Ariana herself had been working as a psychologist for many years. She had her own office in an office building not far from their home. She didn't have many clients, but she was valued for her ability to listen and help people. It was clear that money was not the most important issue for her, so sometimes she helped young women for nothing. In secret, even from her husband a couple of years ago, she created a fake Instagram page and subscribed to John under an assumed name. She was curious about his life now, but it was impossible to see him. She curiously looked at all the photos he posted on his page. She always liked them and sometimes even commented on them. A couple of times John even liked her comments, and she was insanely pleased. The woman realized that she was being silly, but she couldn't deny herself this little joy. For this account, she bought a separate phone, which she hid in a secluded place. Now the woman looked fearfully at her husband and did not know what would happen next. She wished she had at least a small chance to talk to John. She was sure she could get him to listen to her. They were strangers now, of course, but he had once valued her very much. She was afraid to imagine what would happen if he decided to tell his mother. John went back to his apartment and poured himself a drink. He still couldn't process the information from that day. His whole life had been tainted with falseness. His mother and father hadn't been together for a long time. They didn't love each other all those years ago. And him? Did they even love him? Or was that a sham too? He sat on his bed and looked at the painting that had already hung in the apartment when his father handed him the keys to it. John wasn't much into painting, but this was a painting he was very fond of. It soothed him in moments of sadness. It gave him a kind of warmth. He didn't quite understand why it was so precious to him. That night, he drank himself into a stupor and fell asleep in his clothes. Didn't even take a shower. All night, he wanted to call his mother and tell her everything, but some feeling inside him stopped him. The next day, he was awakened by the phone ringing. It was his secretary, Miley. "Good morning, John. There's a charity dinner tonight, as you know, and your father asked you to find out if you'll be attending or not." "What? What dinner?" John asked, trying to fight off his headache. "I'm not going anywhere tonight. Tell him that." He just hung up and forgot about the call a minute later. John was still drunk from last night. He slept through most of the night. When he woke up, his head finally stopped hurting. John picked up his phone to check his messages, but no one had texted him. He accidentally opened the camera and saw his reflection in it. His face was angry and swollen. He clicked and took a picture, and then, without realizing why, he posted it to Instagram with the caption, "All people are jerks." Not half an hour later, "Where shall we meet? Your place? Write down the address." John wrote the address and a message came back. "I'll be there in half an hour." He thought it was bullshit, but just in case, he took the gun he had for self-defense out of the safe and put it in the dresser drawer in the living room. He didn't know why he had sent his address to a stranger. He had no idea what to expect from this meeting, but curiosity got the best of him. Half an hour later, the doorbell rang. John looked through the peephole, but someone covered it with his hand. He wasn't a coward, but curiosity ate him up more, so he decided to open the door to the stranger. On the doorstep of John's apartment stood Ariana. She was wearing a beautiful dress of a delicate cappuccino color and a hat to match. It looked like she was disguising herself so no one would recognize her. "Well, come in if you're here," he said, and let her in, though he was surprised to see her. The boy had no idea of who was coming to see him that evening, but he certainly didn't expect it to be her. "Hey, buddy, how are you feeling?" John wasn't in the mood for small talk, but he wondered why she was here. "Why are you here?" "I wanted to see you. I was worried about you," the woman admitted. "Why should I be?" "Because I love you just like I used to." "Yeah, that's what I believed. Now you're going to start begging me not to tell my mother anything." The guy threw her a scornful look. "I wasn't even planning on it," Ariana said and sat down in the chair. She looked around and smiled contentedly. Everything in the apartment was the same. Nothing had changed. It was clean, though a little dusty. "So why are you here?" "How about some pancakes with condensed milk?" she asked, smiling again. "The kind you used to love when you were a kid." John grinned unhappily. It was true. His nanny often made him pancakes with condensed milk. He still remembered the flavor. "I don't have any condensed milk," he said grudgingly, realizing that she'd managed to get a hold of him. Ariana opened her bag and took out a jar of condensed milk. She looked at John and said, "I've got some." John suddenly smiled. "You're crazy, you know that. And anyway, it's just condensed milk without pancakes. No luck. I still have flour, eggs, milk, and even vegetable oil here," Ariana told him with a smile. She had a nice bag, though not that big. He wondered how it all fit in there. "You sure are crazy. At least now I know why women buy bags like that. Is there a frying pan in there too?" "No, you have a frying pan in your kitchen." "You're wrong. I have no utensils at all, at least not for cooking." The woman looked at him surprised and only mysteriously said, "Actually, you do." "How do you know?" he asked, a little surprised. "Come on, I'll show you," Ariana replied and walked confidently into the kitchen. She went to the work table, gently pressed the side panel with her finger, and it opened. John stared and couldn't believe his eyes. Inside was a pile of all sorts of things. Pots, pans, bowls. Where did they come from? "I always thought it was just a table." "How did you know there was anything in there? I mean, there's not even a handle. I didn't even know they opened." In fact, John was rarely in his kitchen at all. He preferred to eat in expensive restaurants, and at home he could only occasionally order food with delivery. If he invited the... John didn't even know he had that lamp. He'd never once gone near that window in all these years. The view from it was so-so. "How do I know that when you moved in, all the towels in your bathroom were orange in color? And there was a white hooded robe hanging on a hook, and it had gray ships on it. Just like your dad would have had when you were little. Remember when you said you wished all the towels in your house were orange, and you loved Daddy's robe?" John stared at her and didn't blink. How could she know all those things? It was the unadulterated truth. He'd been really excited then, thought his mother had done it all, and he was so grateful to her. He had thought it was the first time in years that she had expressed her love for him in such a way. And now it turns out it wasn't her at all. "How do I know you have a very beautiful painting across the bed? There's a picture of the sea, a sunset, and a small yacht in the distance. And if you look closely, you can see a young woman in a blue dress on the yacht. She has red hair, isn't she?" "Tony, you painted the picture yourself," John grumbled. "No, it's Julianne's work. She's a painter." Another piece of news that was hard to digest. For so many years, he'd been admiring a painting that was actually painted by his own sister. "Did you bring a drink? I feel like getting drunk tonight," he said sadly. "No, no need. Let's go fry pancakes," Ariana suggested, took his hand and led him into the kitchen. She quickly and skillfully kneaded the batter, heated the pan, which was like a young virgin, because for so many years John had not even known about it. When the nanny began to fry pancakes, the smell hit the guy's nose, which once he simply adored. He used to love to sit in the kitchen and watch Nanny make pancakes. Sometimes he'd try to snatch one before she was done, but he'd always get a shovelful of pancakes. And then she would take a few pancakes, arrange them nicely on his plate, and he would eat them greedily. This time John just sat and watched, trying to get his thoughts in order. When Ariana was done, there was a plate of pancakes and 2 mugs of tea on the table. She sat down across from him and slid one of the cups over to him. "Help yourself," she said quietly, and took a sip herself. John took one pancake and shoved it into his mouth. He liked to do that when he was a boy. The pancakes were very thin, and there was so much condensed milk. It was just like it used to be. It was a little bliss. It was like he was back in his childhood again. The same thing happened with the next pancakes until the plate was empty, as was the mug of tea. "How long have you been subscribed to me?" he asked suddenly. "A couple years now," Ariana admitted. "Been following me?" "More like starting at age 70. It is considered that at this time people are just living out their life, but can no longer seriously change it. And the white squares are what you have left to live. That is, the years when you can seriously change your life. There's not that many of them. See? Imagine if they all turn red and you still don't have any moments you really want to remember. What are you? A psychologist now?" "Actually, yes, look," he said and pointed to the square with the number 35. "In this square you could meet your future wife. And in the next one, you could get married. And in 2 more squares, you would have a little girl, and you would name her Mabel. What? John laughed. I would never in my life have named my daughter such a stupid name. Mine would be Hannah or Christina, but definitely not Tonya. Okay, let it be Christina. Ariana smiled now, but in 3 more squares, you'd have a son. Let me guess, Tom, right? Wrong again. I would name my son Alex or Nate, but definitely not Tom. That's kind of a weak name. See, you're a good thinker. But if you don't change anything in your life, they'll just keep getting redder and redder, said Ariana, and began to shade the white squares one by one. At that moment, the meaning of her words came to John. He had lived every day and every year in vain. He had left nothing behind. Nothing at all. Stop it. I hear you, he said, and snatched the piece of paper from her. Don't do that, and stay out of my head. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you. It's all your Instagram. I've been watching you slowly burn through your life all this time. I wanted so much to tell you that you have other options. You can be a husband, you can be a father, you can have children, but you're just living and life is passing you by. So many people envy you, but they don't even realize that they're the ones to envy. Don't feel sorry for me. John got angry. I don't feel sorry for you. No offense, please. Can I see that painting again? I'd missed it so much. John nodded, and she went into his bedroom, and the boy followed her for some reason. How old was she when she painted it? 15, Nanny answered thoughtfully. It's one of her best paintings. Your father always adored it. He even resented me a little when he found out she moved in with you. I still don't believe you've got it all worked out here, John admitted. Ariana squatted down beside the bed and began fumbling underneath it with her hand. After a moment, she pulled out a piece of embroidered cloth. You know what this is? It's an amulet. My grandmother made it for me when I was little. She said it would protect me from bad people. I left it here to keep you safe, she said, tears glistening traitorously in her eyes. No more proof was needed. John now definitely believed that she had created an impeccable coziness in the apartment he'd lived in for so many years, and he hadn't even realized it. Okay, I should probably get going. Your father will be back soon. Ariana headed for the exit and John followed her out. Can I ask you something? She asked sadly. Ask. A hug, she said and smiled. John remembered again how much he loved cuddling with his nanny when he was little, and she had loved it a lot too. He walked over to her and hugged her tightly, and it was so strange. She used to be big and he was small, and now he towered over her by a whole head, but the hug was still just as nice. When John let go of Ariana, she sniffled softly and wiped away her tears. Thank you, I missed that, was all she said and walked away. When Ariana left, John felt a heavy weight on his soul, as if he had lost something very dear to him. A long time ago, there were so many conflicting thoughts in his head. He had believed for so many years that his mother had really done everything in his apartment, and it turned out she'd never even been here once. I mean, she really hadn't been here once since I moved in. She'd had plenty of opportunities, John thought sadly. He didn't visit his parents much himself, but that was more because he spent a lot of time traveling the world, and when he came back, he'd stop by for a couple hours to talk about his experiences, though usually his mother didn't have time to listen. John pulled out his phone and opened his mom's Instagram page. There was a story there from a charity event he hadn't gone to. Catherine was there, as usual, in all her glory. She was by her father's side, holding his hand, as if they were still loving spouses. Paula shifted down her photos. He noticed that his mother dresses more often in red, and only occasionally white or black. There are no other shades in her closet. In all the pictures she smiles, but her eyes remain cold. It was the same in life. If his mother decorated his apartment, it would be in red, black, and white. And certainly the painting would be of some famous artist, bought for several million. It was strange that he himself had never realized it before. While he was thinking about it, a message arrived on Instagram from Ariana's secret account. Did you find the books, or have you never seen them either? Where? In the nightstand by the bed. John walked over to the nightstand, pressed a panel with his finger, like in the kitchen. It opened. There were books, 10 or more, all detectives. He would never have guessed there were books in his house. although sometimes he really wanted to read something other than ebooks, but it never occurred to him to buy them. The nightstand still had a niche and a drawer. That's what he actively used. In the niche, he kept his phone while he slept, and in the drawer, he kept condoms. "Thank you," that's all he said. "You're welcome." The guy took one of the books and started reading. He didn't want to drink anymore. He wanted to break into an interesting story. In the morning, he woke up under the book. He didn't even remember passing out. He wanted to finish reading it first, but then he decided to go to the office. When he arrived, the first thing he did was go to Julianne's office. "Well, hello, sis," he said dryly. This time she smiled at him affably and replied, "Hello to you too. How are you?" John somehow caught himself thinking that it had been a long time since anyone had asked him how he was doing. Although in principle he had always been doing well, but after talking to Ariana, he felt empty and sad. "Fine, I guess. How are you?" "I'm fine. Too bad you didn't come last night. It was a great night." "I'm sure you planned it yourself," he sneered, but the girl preferred to ignore it. "How did you like the painting, by the way?" "Did Mom tell you about it?" John suggested it. "Told me what?" "Well, that she came to see me yesterday." Julianne stood up from her chair. She didn't know what he was talking about. "What do you mean she came to see you? Why?" At that moment, John realized he'd said too much. It turned out that the nanny hadn't told anyone about her visit to him. "Yeah, she just stopped by for a second. She was worried, I guess. I really like the painting, by the way. I've liked it for a long time. Can you show me the others sometime?" He managed to change the subject. "Yeah, why not? You know where we live now. Why don't you come by? Sometime. It's a deal." Unexpectedly, Julian asked her newfound brother, "Do you disapprove of my mother?" "I don't know. I mean, technically, I should. But I feel like it's none of my business. Dad's an adult. He knows how to live his life." "Yeah, he's a great dad. I adore him. I kind of wish you guys were closer. But, you know, it can still be fixed." "Yeah, if you wanted to. And we both don't have a lot of it." No, speak for yourself. My dad really wants to get to know you. He talks about you a lot. He doesn't have a lot to be proud of, but he finds reasons to be. He loves you very much." That was another revelation to John. At least his father really loved him. But why didn't he show it, or did he? The son just didn't see it himself. Like that knit sweater, or the apartment. I mean, his warm feelings slipped into all of that too. "Well, it's good to see you. I should probably get going." Julian was glad her brother had stopped by for a chat. In fact, she wanted to get to know him better. Secretly, she envied him. The thought that her father wouldn't even be able to walk her down the aisle when she got married made her sad, but she realized that it wasn't possible yet. It certainly wouldn't go unnoticed by those around her. And how would she explain it to them? It was complicated. John left the office without even going into his office. He didn't want to see his father yet either. He had a lot to think about. A lot to think about. He came home and decided to finish that book. When it was finished, he accidentally opened the very last page. It had "Love to You" written in the corner. It was clearly not meant for him. But to whom? He was curious. So John wrote to Ariana himself. "Who picked the books?" 2 minutes passed, and then the answer came. "Your father. I always gave him books for the holidays, but he only picked out the ones he particularly liked. Have you read them?" "Only once so far. It was really interesting." It was also somehow nice to know that his father had chosen the ones he thought were the best. Somewhere inside John was still a little boy, resentful of his parents for not paying attention to him as a child. He had hidden it deep inside for a long time, trying to forget and not remember, but now it was especially hard. After finishing one book, John took out the next. He spent several days reading. He hardly ever left the house. Occasionally, he'd order takeout food so he wouldn't starve to death. No one called or wrote to him all those days. I wonder where they all disappeared to. He thought to his friends, and then it occurred to him that he was always the first to write or call them, calling them to hang out, and then the party would start. When the books in the nightstand were finished, or rather were read from cover to cover, it seemed to John that he had become a different person. Almost a week without alcohol and other pleasures had done him good. His head had cleared. His nerves had calmed down. Now he suddenly noticed that he was looking at Ariana and his father's situation a little differently. He even felt sorry for both of them, having had to hide for so long. But could the mother really hurt the father? He wanted to find out. He dialed Catherine's number to warn her that he was coming to visit, but she didn't pick up. So he decided to go to her anyway. When John drove up to their large country house, there was no one there to greet him. There was no security guard, no gardener, no butler. It was about 6 o'clock in the evening. He wondered why she had disbanded everyone who worked in the house. John knew all the passwords, so he had no trouble opening the gate and entering the house. Mom was nowhere to be seen, but there was music coming from upstairs. He followed the sounds, even though he knew he'd better turn around and drive back home. When John got to the 3rd floor, the music was already quite loud. There was laughter and voices coming from the far bedroom. He entered the room and saw his mother in the company of a stranger. "Hi, Mom, having fun?" John asked contemptuously and turned away so that she could clean herself up. She jumped up in surprise, quickly threw on a robe and took a defensive position. In his 50 with a tail, Catherine looked beautiful. But it was no surprise to anyone because she spent so much money on aesthetic medicine and plastic surgery. Once she promised herself that she would remain young and beautiful as long as the money. "What are you doing here? I'll explain everything to you," she said and dragged him by the hand out of the room. They went down the stairs together. Catherine poured herself a glass of wine and her son splashed whiskey in a glass. "Thank you, I'm actually driving," her son told her and pushed the glass away. And how long have you not been drinking while driving? That's news." Decided to play an ordinary mortal or on the traffic cop's sorry to spend money? "I just don't want to. So go ahead and explain. You promised," insisted the guy. Catherine definitely looked at him. No more defense, only offensive. "And what, you still thought that your parents lived happily married? I'm sorry to disappoint you, but that hasn't been the case for a long time." It wasn't what she said that bothered John, because he already knew the truth. It was the way she said it. Like their family was worthless. There was so much contempt in every word she said. At that moment, he'd already made up his mind. "I'd already figured it out. I just came to talk to you about it. Do you know that your father has another woman?" "I wouldn't be surprised if he has more than one." His mother snorted. "Only I don't give a damn about how he lives or what he does." "No, just one as far as I know. And I also know that he wants to divorce you and marry her." "What?" This Catherine certainly did not expect, but then smiled and very confidently said, "It is unlikely. He doesn't have the courage." "Why do you think so?" "I have one trump card up my sleeve against your father," her mother said mysteriously. "Then it's high time you got it. You'll get the divorce papers today or tomorrow. And I won't be surprised if his lawyers retroactively draw up some kind of prenup that leaves you penniless." "What are you talking about?" screamed the mother angrily. "It's not gonna happen." She sprang from her seat and ran to her father's study. It was a long time since Frank had been in it, as well as in this house. Catherine pulled back one of the bookcases with great difficulty and put her hand through it as if she were looking for something. "I knew he'd searched the whole house except for one room," she said triumphantly. "Clever, wasn't it?" John was pleased. His plan had worked perfectly. "Let me at least see what all the fuss is about," he asked and held out his hand. His mother, unsuspecting, handed him the folder. She was sure her son was on her side. John quickly thumbed through the real estate deeds, but didn't look at the meaning. "Mammy, I've been meaning to ask you," he said, pretending to study the papers. "How did you know that I love the color purple so much?" "What do you mean?" Catherine asked him uncomprehendingly. "Well, remember, you decorated and furnished my apartment? You specially ordered purple towels, didn't you?" The woman guessed that something was going on, but could not understand what was the matter, so she decided to play along with her son. "Of course, I'm your mom. I know what your favorite color is. You've loved purple since you were a kid. That's why the towels were that color," she said with a smile. "You're wrong. I've always loved orange. And the towels there were orange," replied the son sadly. "What do you mean by that?" "I'm saying I'm keeping the papers. You'll divorce your father and you won't make a scene out of nothing. You'll get your half after the divorce and leave him alone. And if you get naughty, he'll sue you for everything. After all, I'm sure it won't be hard to find evidence of your many infidelities. Did you hear me? Or repeat again?" "Wow," was all he could say. Frank walked over to John and gave him a hug. "Thank you, son. It's a wonderful gift." Ariana stood behind him and sobbed softly. She, too, couldn't believe that now they could finally be married. She'd been dreaming about it for years. Come on, Dad, I get it. It had to be done. But Mom would never have given you the papers herself. I hope you don't leave her with nothing. After all, she was your wife for so many years, and she'll still be my mother. I didn't plan on leaving her with nothing. I still can't believe it. Julian, come here. We have great news. Julian was already in the living room. She was standing behind Mom and she heard everything. You're awesome, bro, she said and hugged John too. You promised to show me something, her brother said and gave her a hug. They went to her room together and Julian showed her brother her favorite paintings. She even gave a couple of them away. One of them had a beautiful girl with blonde hair painted on it, but her sister wouldn't admit who it was. A couple days later, Ariana stood in the bedroom near the mirror and looked at her reflection. She was wearing her favorite dress that she had longed to wear on a real date with Frank. Tonight, they were to have dinner together at her favorite restaurant. She'd only gone there alone before, or with Julianne. But tonight all her dreams were going to come true. She had dreamed of this day for so long. And she was so grateful to John for his help. The divorce wasn't the easiest. Catherine hired lawyers to get the most out of her husband. He had no problem giving her the house she lived in, and several other properties abroad. He with difficulty managed to agree with his almost ex-wife so that she did not claim his business. But in the end, everyone was satisfied. As soon as Frank divorced, immediately took Ariana to the registry office to apply. They were married a week later. They did not have to wait a whole month because for money you can solve some small difficulties. They played a wonderful wedding, to which they invited only their children and the best friends. Ariana stood near the wedding arch and looked at it. It was decorated with snow-white roses and orchids. John looked at her and couldn't look away. He still loved his former nanny who was able to replace his mother, even if only for a short time. Are all your dreams coming true now? He asked quietly, coming up behind her. Ariana turned to him and smiled. She took his hands and said, It's all only because of you, buddy. It's only because of you. Wrong, it's all because of you. Thank you for coming back into my life again. I've learned a lot. I think I'll try to make better use of the remaining white squares on that paper. You do that, sweetie. Money can't buy happiness. I believe that everything will be fine. I promise, but please don't disappear again. When it was time for Julianne to get married, Frank himself took her down the aisle. The girl looked beautiful in her wedding dress and madly happy to have the whole family together. The celebration was decided to arrange on the seashore as the young bride dreamed. By that time, John had already managed to get acquainted with her fiancé Mickey, who worked as a chef in one of the best establishments in Washington. The guy was quite ambitious, dreamed of owning his own restaurant someday, and something told John that soon his son-in-law's dreams would come true. With the maid of honor and Juliana's best friend Fiona, he met only at the wedding because he was not at any rehearsal. He was busy. He'd been delving into the firm's business. Therefore, he arrived just a couple of hours before the ceremony. To his surprise, John learned that his father is not only skillfully earning money, but also no less wisely managed them. It turned out that Frank, or rather his company, sponsored a large number of charitable organizations, although the press rarely talked about it. Fiona immediately attracted John's attention. It was Fiona who was depicted in the painting that now hung in his living room. Outwardly, she seemed so arrogant and even cold, but when she chatted with Julianne and smiled with all her teeth, she became quite different. Fiona reacted coldly and aloofly to any attempts to give her attention. Perhaps she thought it was a bad idea to date her friend's brother. John didn't like the fact that she didn't notice him, but it made him more and more interested. He'd been courting the girl for weeks before he'd gotten the kiss he wanted, or rather, almost stalked her. But that was the details. Her impregnability could envy even the Great Wall of China. After 6 months of relations, John realized that he wanted more, so he proposed to Vasilina. She accepted, though not immediately. It seemed that she even liked to torture her beloved refusals and reflections. When they decided to get married, his mother Catherine never came to their wedding, but she didn't need her there because her father and Ariana were there.